Hi, I'm John Costi. Welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be painting some bubble paintings as part of the Digital Art School with hospital rooms. So today you're going to need some paper, acrylic paint, brushes, washing up liquid, water, cups that are the same height, straws, and some pens or colouring pencils, and most importantly, we're going to need your breath. I'm going to use a colour scheme that I'm lifting from a really early memory of chasing an ice cream lady on my estate, and she was quite legendary, and if I was lucky enough, some days I'd get a Zap lolly, and it has this cloudy kind of green, yellow, and sort of flecks of pink in it. So I'm going to mix some colours in some colourful cups. So if you get 6 cups to begin, we also have some washing up liquid and some water for our brushes, and we will be adding water to these cups and washing up liquid too. So let's start with a yellow. This is a lemon yellow, which is quite a strong yellow. And then we're going to go for a more of an ochre yellow. Some rose red going in the cup. Actually, we're going to do 2 rose reds because I'm going to add some white to that to make a pink. And there's our pink. A bright blue. That's enough of that. And then a green. I'm going to also add some white to as well. So you can do any colour scheme you like. Even a sort of sea scene or a cloud scene would work really nice with this technique. I'm going to add some water, just a little bit of water, kind of maybe 1.5 centimetres in each cup. And then we're going to add our washing up liquid. Quite a generous dollop of washing up liquid, probably a tablespoon in each cup. Now, before we mix them, I'm going to set up our paper. I'm going to do 3 at once today. So this is really nice watercolour paper, but you can do this technique with any paper. Let's mix these up. They'll start to bubble straight away. We've got a really nice green there, a really nice blue here. Even in this process, I find it really relaxing that I get to watch colours kind of develop on their own a bit. Not quite know exactly how they're going to come out, which I do. I'm quite into not knowing. There's plenty of room to make mistakes, as it were. So I'd recommend that we start with lighter colours. And the most important thing you're going to need now is your breath. So we get a straw, and this is my yellow. So I'm going to start with the yellow, and you just get the straw, put it in, and you begin to blow like that, and you get these bubbles, and you can sort of swipe them onto the paper, like that. Maybe let some land there. Give them a little blow. You can sort of pop some if you like. Be aware that there might be some that come out that don't look great to start with, but they will dry and they will leave really interesting sort of webs. And I'm particularly interested in bubbles because I see them as these beautiful, kind of delicate, breath-made, I don't know what I'd call them, moments. I feel like they're like moments. And you can sort of spread it gently. So let's keep going with this. So here we've got a bit of a darker yellow. So for me, the process of making art is kind of more important than the actual finished product. I've used art as a coping mechanism. When I was 19, I was sent to prison for a series of robberies. My life was a mess. And when I was in prison, I was obsessed with art. And someone suggested to me that I might be interested in doing art therapy. It really helped me to kind of place myself or just get a moment where I was in control. The only place that I found that kind of sanctuary was in the art making space. All of the emotions that we might feel that we can't vocalize or verbalize can be explored and investigated on a piece of watercolor paper with some washing up liquid and some paint, and again, your breath. I think that we make these out of our own breath is really poetic, and that's why making bubble paintings really appeals to me, because I don't know how it's going to end up, and that's really exciting for me. It's starting to really take shape a bit now. It's good to cover the edges, depending if you're going for a definite shape. I'm kind of going for more of a, I don't know, maybe like a cosmic scene of a nebula or something like that, some kind of gaseous cosmic clouds. Right, so we've done 3 colours and we're looking all right. When I put this yellow on, it didn't look that impressive, but now that it's drying, it looks really biological. It looks like it's alive. Maybe it's a flower. And these are going to start talking to each other. The next colour we got coming up, a fleshy pink colour. So when I was back in Feltham, in I guess similar situation to some of you, I didn't realise, but my mind was really loud. I didn't have the time or the space to listen to it really before I went to prison. But the only thing that quieted that was leaving this kind of world here and coming into this world here. You might notice here that some of these kind of more condensed bubbles, if you spread them, they dry beautifully. So just like that, that will dry really nicely, and it will give some real detail to this work. And then we're going to go with this lovely green. It's a bit minty. It's like a dark minty green. So already we've got quite a cool triptych of artworks that are doing their own thing, and I love it when art does its own thing. So again, it might not look like much when you're spreading it like this, but again, we're making art, so we can always go back and we can always rework and you can always rebuild. I think in every artwork there's an element of reinventing oneself. Now we're going to need some time for this to dry, and in that time I want you to think about what sort of feelings have come up while you were making this, and whether it was light, like a bubble, and colourful, and if it wasn't, that's also okay. And now it's going to dry and it's going to do its own thing, where we're not in control of this bit, but we are the composer. So now we've got to let our orchestra do what it's got to do. And then when we come back to it, hopefully we'll have a really nice surprise. We should have a really nice surprise. Okay, so our works are now dry, and I'm going to select some felt pens, but you can use pencils, you can use pastels, you could even use some old paint that we have left over from the bubbles. I'm going to start with some quite light colours. I've got a lemon citron here, and I'm going to pick out certain elements of this form, and I might do some sharper lines in this one. So there's maybe a peace sign here, and then maybe it's not a peace sign, maybe it's a star. And I just want to follow that intrigue and that sort of intuition, but by making much more handmade marks. We've got the sort of lucidity of the bubbles working here, but I think by just embellishing with a couple of sharper lines, it kind of gives a lot of depth, and like someone may have been here. There's like a kind of history that's forming here. So if you just see here, I'm just filling in these spaces. I mean, and there can be very slight marks as well. Again, just being quite intuitive, going with a gut feeling. So they're just making these shapes. They don't have any kind of reason necessarily, apart from maybe that they're floating in this kind of cosmic consciousness that we've kind of developed. Let's go for a apple green. Where are we going to put that one? I think maybe we could do some of our own bubbles. Be free in your work. This is a bright red, so this is a bit of a risk. But I think if we have a couple of little kind of doodahs, I'll call them, maybe a star. Another star there and then a smaller one there. Let's do an eye somewhere. Because again, they're quite sort of, they're like cells or this kind of living organism. And I think that all art's kind of living. I try to make sure that people do realise that they are allowed to make art. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you sell it for millions, because the second you start making it, you'll realise that it doesn't matter. You'll realise that you're doing it for you. And I would like to find, if I could, a starting point for a note to myself. And today's note might be, it's a good day. It's quite sunny outside, and that always helps. Or maybe it's a new day. I quite like it's a new day. So in these bubbles I'm going to try and find some shapes. There's our eye. And then we can sort of do a T here. And then an S can kind of come along this bubble, down around that bubble, and down around here. And then we can find it. It's a bit of a big S, but it doesn't even matter if anyone can read it. It's only for you. So let's try and make that even cooler. And so now we've got it's. Let's put, I think there's an A here. And then is there an N there? And an E looks like it will fit in just here. It's A. That's a W there. Around those bubbles. It's a new day. And just like that, we have a note to ourselves to remember that even if yesterday was tough, today doesn't have to be. We can even put a little bit of 3D on here with a lighter tone. Going underneath there. A bit there. And that, so if you just imagine the light kind of hitting the letters from here where the shadow would be. This A's kind of got one already in the bubble, but we'll put one there as well, and then just below it. You might not want to put text in. You might want to go back to your paint that you have with the fairy liquid, because of, while it's great to come to put in some straight lines, it might mess with your harmony, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to get some more pink, because pink's probably my favourite colour. And now I'm going to let this kind of lead me quite intuitively again, just around the sheet, and pick out spaces that might still be a bit void of vibration. I quite like how these are looking. I'm quite into these red marks that are coming along here, that are sort of coming from off the page. So I might try to frame it a little bit. by doing some marks there, like that. Maybe one down here. When I was younger and I didn't talk much, I remember once I went to see a doctor about it, and he asked me to draw something instead. And this is how I know I was always an artist, even though I didn't know I was always an artist. I drew the genie from Aladdin, and they were really impressed by it, and I remember sort of getting this excitement. I still couldn't really talk, but I remember thinking, wow, I did that. And now I'm quite proud of what these look like too. But that feeling never kind of left, that feeling of fulfillment in making something that someone else could say, wow, that's cool. That's quite nice. These are really starting to deepen. Maybe we'll go for the brown. And I'm going to kind of ignore the bubbles now, and I'm just going to write, let's LETS FLOAT. Let's float. And then I can maybe dress that one up a little bit. And we can kind of turn these into 3D if we get the edges, the corners. We go 45 degrees from each one. Let's float. And then I'm going to put a little bit of pink in it, because pink's my favourite. And of course you can use any kind of art material to write what you'd like, to draw what you'd like. It might be your favourite band, it might be a family member's name, it might be a friend of yours' name, it could be a football team. It's probably best that it's positive. It's something that you can look to when you might not be feeling your best, to remind you what you're capable of. And I'm pretty sure that what you would have made is quite beautiful, so that means that you're capable of beautiful things, even if you don't believe that right now. So we have let's float, it's a new day, maybe one more. On the final one, let's go for red, and then we can go, I'm going to go a bit fancy with this one, but you can write any way you like. I find it quite helpful to kind of do thick vertical lines to give the letters some definition. You can just write out a letter and then you can go around it again. Hospital rooms is really important to me because of when I was in Feltham and I started making art, I was asked to do these paintings for a room that was really in a bad state. It was called Enhancing Healing Environments, and that's kind of what we're doing here, what hospital rooms do outside of the digital art school. Now that I'm at this point, I'm going to try to find a bit of a cloud using the shapes that are already here to sort of contain this text of it. So if you go from that S, maybe that top of that H, we just kind of use the bubbles that are already there, and then we connect them all up. I'm just going to put a little bit of 3D on the letters, just up close to it this time round, just to give it a bit more depth. Now we can go to make it look a bit more convincing. We can just put a couple of dots at the end of these, so that it looks like it's just shining on top of the letter. I think maybe we're going to go around this with one more colour, and it's going to be a pink, and it's just going to be picking out some shapes around it to make it look a bit more substantial in and amongst this cosmic slop. let's get that red again. And we're going to just do another sort of vibe line is what I'd call this. It's like a vibration line. So there we have 3 artworks made by Bubbles, and then a bit of intuition from us, a bit of hopefulness from us. Now, if you put this up in your room, and if you're ever feeling that you're a bit lost, you can refer back to this painting and remember that the Bubbles, they didn't know where they were going either, but they've managed to make this beautiful thing, and they're all communicating and they're all living in harmony. And hopefully that this image, whether it's a poem or just an image, it can bring you some peace and a little bit of respite, because that's what I think we all need from this world sometimes. Thanks for joining me today. I'd be really interested to see what outcomes may have been produced, and you can share them with me and everybody else at the Hospital Room's website. Thank you.